Hello everyone. Um, as I've already introduced myself, I am Kushal Sharma, and I have already taken two sessions for you guys. That is object-oriented programming in Python and packages and modules. So today we are going to learn about parallel programming with Python. So let's get started. Now, before we know what is parallel programming in Python, let's just start with ground basics, the real basic stuff. So basically, what do you mean by the word parallel? So parallel means like some things that occur concurrently. Okay, like simultaneously. Parallel means simultaneously. So like let's say there is, yeah, I'll give you a common example, Olympics. So in Olympics there were like simultaneously events going on, right? um One in one channel they were showing boxing, in one channel they were showing javelin throwing, one channel they were showing archery, or whatever the case may be. I'm not so accurate in all these, but whatever, this is just for example. So that the events were going on parallelly. That means concurrently. So what does this give you an idea about? It gives us an idea that parallel programming is all about running programs concurrently. That means running programs simultaneously. Okay. Like till now, you have seen that we run program concurrently, right? Like let's say we are uh, writing a program in Python and there are few sets of code, okay, in a function. So when the function is running, the code is run line by line, okay? The code, it is run line by line, that is concurrent. I'm sorry, that is not concurrent, that is consecutive. Consecutive means one after the another. So, like when the first line is run and it something, if some computation is done, then after that only the compiler, or in the case of Python, the interpreter, it will, since it is like in Python we have interpreters, it is line by line interpreter. So it will execute the first line, then it will go to the second line, and then it will go to the third line. So that is a form of programming, that is normal programming. What we do, that is consecutive programming. Parallel programming is a bit different. In this, we try to run the programs concurrently. I will explain you what is that and all that in detail in the next few slides, but this is just the introduction. So once again, parallel means basically simultaneously occurring. Another example, it could get quite nerdy, but we EC students, we are EC students, right? We have studied circuits a lot. So we have series circuit and parallel circuit, right? So in series circuit, what happens? Current will first go through the first element, then after that it will go to the second element, and then after that it will go to the third element, right? That is consecutive, means without the first element getting the current, the second won't, and then the third won't. And what is a parallel circuit? A parallel circuit, that current flows in all the circuits simultaneously, right? Like if the elements are connected in parallel, all the elements will have current in them simultaneously. There wouldn't be any delay, right? Even though it's nanoseconds, but there wouldn't be any delay, right? So that was just the basic idea of what is parallel and what is parallel programming. Now let's get straight into the topic. So what is parallel computing or parallel programming, whatever you want to say? Parallel programming is basically running more than one process or task together and better efficiently utilizing the CPU, so that is the same many things that can be carried out. Okay, so now you guys must have, like when you go to the shop to buy your laptop or computer, or just in general, if you have a bit of knowledge about computers, so you must know that like we get the our CPUs in the laptop, we get like quad core, octa core, and all that. So what does that mean? It basically means that the number of cores in your CPU, okay, the number of cores, and the cores have processors in them. So obviously, computer does so much complex things for us, right? So it doesn't have a single processor. If it had a single processor in the CPU, then like even for the small things, it would take so much time. But it has many cores, hence it has many resources which are idle. Basically, like let's say we are running a program like normal on concurrent. not concurrent, sorry, consecutive. I don't know why I confuse between the two. Anyways, so what I'm trying to say is, like normally when we run the program in a consecutive fashion, the traditional program, what happens is one processor of the CPU is used to compute and run the program, while the other three processors are there. They are just idle. Like idle in the sense they might be carrying out tasks related to the operating system or whatever it may be, but it is not useful for us in our Python, right? In our Python programming. So to utilize more number of cores and more number of processors in our CPU by doing some simultaneous execution, basically that is parallel computing or parallel programming. That is the basic idea, like what is parallel computing. So in techie terms, if you understand, try to understand, it's basically trying to utilize the cores of our processors of our CPU by doing some tasks simultaneously, so that we can save time, right? Like if we have, let's say, three tasks, and if we run and imagine our CPU has four cores, and like when we are running a program, we just use one core and the three cores are just left idle. So in that case, then what is the use of having such a powerful computer? We could have just bought a computer with one or max two cores, right? Like we have technology, so in order to save time, we can do and like we can do concurrent programming and parallel computing. So moving on, now why would we do parallel computing? You must wonder, like we are normally doing the running the program and just running the code, then why do all this and why run simultaneously? Anyways, a single program would take nanoseconds or microseconds to run that. So how does it even make a difference? So basically, the whole real world runs in dynamic nature, right? Many things happen in certain time, but at different places concurrently. So this data is extensively used to manage. So basically, when we have small data or when we have small computations, it doesn't matter. But like if we have like millions and billions of data, then if we are just running the program in a consecutive manner, it would take a lot of time and it would be a huge wastage on our resources. In that case, parallel programming would be needed. Real world data needs more dynamic simulation and modeling. For achieving the same, parallel computing is the key. So, as the above example, in this example also real world data, right? It needs a more dynamic simulation because the data is dynamic in nature and it changes a lot. So that is why we need parallel computing. Even parallel computing provides concurrency. As I told, concurrency means running something simultaneously and saves time and money, right? Because obviously time is we save time, right? As I told you, when we run the program simultaneously and when we are running it not consecutively, we are doing two things at one time. I'll give you a basic example so that things get more clear to you. Okay. Let's say you have lot of money. Okay. Let's say you are a business person and you have a strict deadline to follow, right? So, and let's say you have two tasks, task one and task two, and like you have one computer engineer. Okay. So if that one computer engineer takes 3 months to complete one task, then he would take 6 months to complete another task, right? And we are paying him salary for extra 3 months for the for the same amount of our assignment. We are paying him extra salary. Okay, money is secondary, but primary is time. So, in that case, what do? We will hire another software engineer, right? Like both of the software engineer can do the task. So what we will do, we will divide the task between the two engineers so that they can simultaneously work on the project, and that will save time. Okay, and another point to notice, the both the tasks which you are assigning, they must be independent of each other, right? If they are dependent on each other, then like how can we do the task simultaneously? Let's say the first task is to make a drawing, okay, and the second task is to color it. So in that case, we have no other choice but we have to go with the traditional route, the traditional consecutive programming. Because see, if you don't complete task one, which is drawing, it doesn't make sense to color, right? What will you color? Like you'll not color just the blank paper. You'll have to color the drawing. So if the drawing is not made, then how will you color it? So basically in this case, task 2 will depend on task 1, right? So where dependency is there, concurrency is very difficult or almost impossible to achieve, because then the secondary task or the dependent task has to wait for the previous task to be completed for it to function properly. Okay, I hope you have like a basic clear idea of parallel computing and its necessities. Like we have another example, let's say we have complex large data sets, right? So their management can be organized only using parallel computing approach, because see, if you are like complex large data set is there, then management in using normal traditional consecutive programming would be very hectic and very difficult, right? But if we like, there are different data sets which are independent on each other. Yeah, okay. So like let's say we have a data set which is about blood group of people, okay, and then we have another data set which is about salary of other people. So both of these have no relation with them, right? Like no relation to each other. So in this case, we can use parallel computing. It would be very really efficient. Okay. Now, as I previously mentioned, it provides the effective utilization of the resources. So if you have resources and you don't utilize those resources, then what is the use of having them, right? The hardware is guaranteed to be used effectively, whereas in serial computation, only some parts. So as I explained, like if you have 4 cores and one core is only working and other 3 are sitting idle, then what is the use of having them, right? It's better to make all the 4 cores busy and like reducing the time by 1/4, right? So now what is the advantages of parallel programming? Now these points I've discussed earlier also, but you will get a more clear picture if I discuss them again. So it saves times and money, as many resources working together will reduce the time and cut potential costs. Obviously, as we discussed previously. It can be impractical to solve larger problems on serial computing. So as I mentioned before also, if we have like a very complex data, or if we have like very really complex problem to solve, then it would be very hectic and very impractical to solve them in serial computing in just one go. We have to solve many smaller problems simultaneously, right? Okay. Also, it can take advantage of non-local resources when the local resources are finite. So this is just like information. So cloud resources, right? So in parallel computing, what we can do is like if we want to solve a problem, we can use our CPU to solve some part of the problem, and the remaining part we can, if we have like membership of, not membership, like if we pay for the piece of Amazon, this AWS or Google Drive, it's cloud service, right? So we can use its tools also to make the computation faster, because it is also like a resource for us that is not local, that is not on our machine, but still it is a resource, right? So we can take advantage of that also. Now serial computing also wastes the potential computing power, as I told, like keeping the majority of the processors idle is not wise at all. It's just as like wasteful as just not even having them. So parallel computing even makes better work of the hardware. Now everything has a con. So does parallel computing. So there are some limitations of that, but if you study operating system subjects, like we don't have in our EC course, but if you take out some time and read that subject, you will understand what is the synchronization and deadlock and all that stuff, like how a process works and how scheduling algorithm. That is very complex. I will not be able to cover that in this course, but just I am telling you for further reading if you want, if you guys are interested in operating system and all these stuff. So, what are the limitations of parallel computing? So, it addresses such as communication and synchronization between multiple subtasks and processes which are difficult to achieve. Okay, so basically, like we have a task, okay, and then we have multiple subtasks and processes, okay. So, communication and synchronization between them can be difficult to achieve. See, when we are computing in like serial manner, let's say we have 3 tasks, okay, like we have 3 tasks, um, let's say consider a sports event only. Okay, so first the event is swimming, that is one. Second it is cycling, and third it is athletic racing. Okay, so the complete task is this triathlon, and it has three subtasks: swimming and cycling and racing. So this sync between them and this communication, right? This communication between the events happening, that can be a bit hectic and a bit difficult to do, right? So that is one of the limitations of parallel computing. Another limitation is the algorithm must be managed so that they can be handled in parallel mechanism. So there's obviously this like common sense, but again I'm discussing. So if you have an algorithm and you want to make use of the hardware and want to do parallel computing, but if you poorly design the algorithm in such a way that it cannot it cannot handle the parallel mechanism, and it is not efficient at all for parallel computing, then what is the use, right, of parallel mechanism when the algorithm design is poor and it is as bad as a serial programming, right? Another limitation is algorithms or programs must have low coupling and high cohesion. So basically, this low coupling and high cohesion, these are terms in software industry like software engineering, but I'll try to make it easy for you. So basically, coupling means what happens is, like, let's say different modules. Okay, we studied modules and packages in Python, right? So let's say different classes and modules, they when they are like together in a package or when they are far in a package, that is coupling. Okay, so low coupling means all the packages which are not related to each other. Okay, which are not related to each other at all, or maybe like have a very few relation, must be far away from them. Okay, high coupling means the different modules and packages or classes which are not packages, sorry, modules and classes which are and files, let's say, which are not at all related to each other. They are together in one package. That is high coupling, and we don't want that. Okay, we want low coupling. Low coupling means the different package modules and files and classes which have no relation in them, they must be far apart in different packages. And similarly, cohesion is the opposite of that. It means that like how close is the modules or the files which are directly related to each other together. Okay, so high cohesion means all the modules and all the files which are seriously and like very highly related to each other, they must be together in one unit. Okay, but it is difficult to create such programs because practically it's a bit difficult to implement this. Now, another limitation is more technically skilled and expert programmers can code a parallel based program well. So, like you guys are learning parallel programming, right? So you guys must be grateful. Not everyone in the world who wants to be software engineer has got the opportunity to learn about parallel programming. So and if they have not learned and they are not skilled enough, then how can they design a good algorithm or a good program which can utilize the maximum capacity of parallel program, right? So these were few of the limitations of parallel computing, because see, nothing is perfect, right? And everything has a pro and a con. So these are some of the cons of parallel computing. It's not perfect, but generally, if it is advised to do parallel programming rather than serial programming, actually it depends on the use case. See, if as I told you, their tasks must be independent. If they are dependent, then how can you achieve parallel programming? So if the tasks are independent, it is always advised to do parallel programming, because then you efficiently utilize your resources. Now, applications of parallel programming. So, what are the common applications of parallel programming? They are used in databases and data mining. Data mining is basically cryptocurrency. Okay, I won't go into much of the details because this is not a blockchain workshop, but I'll just tell you the basics. So, basically, data mining is like you have this so much computers, high powered computers and GPUs with them, and there is a puzzle or something you have to solve it. Okay, and like the more puzzles you solve, the more part of a cryptocurrency you get. And that is why the people who are like miners, they are actually, data mining is different than the cryptocurrency mining. I'm just explaining mining in general, like the cryptocurrency one. Data mining is mining of data. Just understand that. So in cryptocurrency mining, what happens is you have these powerful GPUs which will solve some puzzle, and then you'll get some part of a Bitcoin. Okay, and that is why like the gamers, the core gamers who are really out there, they are really angry at the people who are miners, because what they will do, they will buy all the GPUs for solving the puzzles and solving and getting bitcoins and all that. And because of that, the gamers, when they buy this GPU and graphics card and all that, the price goes very high because the demand is so much and they are buying everything and cutting on. Anyway, that is really off topic. So moving on, time simulation of systems. So in real time simulation of system also, like when the systems are being simulated in real time, you have to do parallel programming, right? Because simulation in real time, it has to like multiple systems, when it is happening, it has to be simultaneously, otherwise how can you make them communicate and how can you make them efficiently work with each other, right? And science and engineering, this is a very obviously engineering, computer science and all that, otherwise why would we study parallel programming if it was not like applying in science and engineering. And it is also used in advanced graphics, augmented reality and virtual reality. So in virtual reality, when like if you have experienced VR and AR, you will see that simultaneously three four environments elements is there, right? Like when you play Pokemon Go, one Pokemon is there, and then Pokeball simultaneously it's coming, right? And even in VR, like when you if you are playing some game, then you will see that this game part is there, and if like so the trees are also there, so everything exists simultaneously. Then how would that happen? It is all happening with the help of parallel programming. Okay, so moving on, now what are the types of parallel programming? Okay, even parallel programming has types. So there are four types. So the first type is bit level parallelism. Okay, in this form of parallel programming, like it is based on increasing the processor size, right? It reduces the number of instructions so that system must execute in order to perform a task on large size data. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, if we have like large size data, okay, so that is a huge chunk of data. So we will just break it into bit sizes, right? We will break it into bit sizes, and we will reduce the number of instructions that system, because we are breaking it, right? And we are executing it parallelly. Okay, that is the easiest example I can give. Second one is instruction level parallelism. A processor can only address less than one instruction for each clock cycle phase. So this was a fun fact and a bonus for you guys. So a processor that can only, this is a fact that a processor can only address less than one instruction for each clock cycle phase. So you know, right, you have studied in digital design that we will have clock cycle. So in each clock cycle, the processor can have execute only less than one instruction. These instructions can be reordered and grouped and executed concurrently without affecting the result of the program. Obviously, right? So these instructions, they can be reordered and grouped in such a way that they can be executed parallelly without affecting the result. Yeah. So the major takeaway here is, they must be independent. The instructions must be independent so that they can be reordered and executed simultaneously. Okay. So now, third type is task type. So, task parallelism employs the decomposition of a task into subtasks and then allocating each of the subtasks for execution. The processors perform the execution of subtasks concurrently. It is more like, I would say, bit level and instruction level. It is, see, the types of parallel programming, they are alike to each other a lot. Okay, it's not that all of them will be different. So in case of, we were just considering instructions and all that, here let's say any task, even though it's not an instruction, it's just a task, the same principle applies. Now data level parallelism, instructions from a single stream operate concurrently on several data, limited by non-regular data manipulation patterns and memory bandwidth. So yeah, so here the major takeaway is, the data should be regular. Okay, if it is non-regular and it is manipulated, so it would be like difficult to carry out concurrent computation on that data. and memory bandwidth. Let's say you have like less memory, then how can you like go out of the scope and compute parallelly, right? So here in this data level, what happens is like there are many data. Okay, so instruction from single stream operate concurrently on several data. So let's say there are several data. Okay, let's say you want to make some decision. You want to see some like you got survey from 50 100 people, or 50 100 is really small number. Let's say 10,000 people. Okay, and you want to see like how will they react in future, or something you want to predict this. So you will, this thing is more applicable in machine learning. So basically there is a basic instruction which like the same instruction, if you want to perform on several data, then we can use data level parallelism, because in that case on the several data the same instruction will work concurrently, hence by reducing the our wastage of resources. Okay, now how do we implement parallel programming? Okay, how do we implement? So there are basically two types of implementation. One is shared memory. Okay, so what is the shared memory? Shared memory is basically a common unit of memory that is shared among multiple entities or threads. You will learn later what are threads. I'll tell what are threads and all that. So in shared memory, like the memory, one memory is there. Suppose you have like 1 GB of memory in pen drive. That's too less, but let's say 1 GB of memory you have not in pen drive, in hard disk. So that is shared memory. Okay, and like let's say you have 1 GB allocated SSD and 3 GB HDD. That is not shared, because separate unit is there for SSD, separate unit is there for HDD, right? That is a vague example I'm just giving to make you guys understand. But in shared memory, the subunits can communicate with each other through the same memory space, right? Pretty obvious. The advantage is that you don't need to handle the communication explicitly, because this approach is sufficient to read or write from the shared memory, which is multi-threading. So the advantage is that like if the memories are different, so communication would be a very much hassle, right? You have to like go from one memory instruction to another memory instruction to, in order to effectively communicate. But if the memory is shared, let's say I'll give you a common life example. So you let's consider memory as house. Okay, so you live with your family members in one house, right? So let's, so that is kind of shared memory, and in like your communication with your family members would be very much easier, right? Because you share the same house, it would be very hassle free. And let's say like you live in let's say New Delhi, and your friend lives in Bangalore. So communicate, so both are not in like same place, or same leave same house, they're not even in the same city, right? So that is not shared memory. So communication is very much hassle, right? We only got video call or phone, and when the network issue is there, then in that time you can't even talk to your friend properly, right? So everything has ups and downs. So now distributed memory. Distributed memory is like the opposite of shared memory. Each process is totally separated and has its, okay, one thing. What is multi-threading? I'll explain later, so don't worry. Okay. Yeah. So carrying on, distributed memory is like the opposite of shared memory. Each process is totally separated and has its own memory space. As I told, everyone has its own space, right? People keep on saying, right, give me some space, give me some space. So they have this, so they get their own space, right? So in that case, it can be related to distributed memory. In this scenario, communication is handled explicitly, right? It's a bit of hassle, and it is handled explicitly because it happens to network interface, and it is costlier to share memory, right? So communication between your family members, as I told, shared memory, it is completely free, right? But with your friend who is another way, you are using a network interface, that is phone, and it is costly, right? You have to pay your monthly postpaid bill or whatever the thing is, but it is costly when you compare to your family, right? Like just not take family, anyone, like even your neighbors, they are also like very close to you, so you won't have a problem communicating with them. And this distributed memory implementation of parallel computing is implemented through multiprocessing. I will explain what are all these. Okay. Don't worry. So moving on. Now, what is a thread and what is multi-threading? So, a thread is a path of execution within a process. In simple terms, we can think of a thread as a task. Okay, like in simple terms, if you want to think, like just consider a thread as a task. A thread is also known as lightweight process. What is the process I will tell earlier, but like a process. Okay, I'll just tell now what is a process. Process is basically if you combine multiple threads, it is a process. Okay, thread is any task, like any basic task you can think of as a thread. So now you must be, it would be a common question for you guys, and we already have functions in Python, right, for a task. Then what is the difference between function and task? Actually, what happens is, see, in function, you can't execute the code concurrently, right? Like the function, even earlier I told that in function, what happens is, first the interpreter, it will see one line of code, check it, then it will execute another line, right? But in thread, actually what happens, context switching happens. Okay, so context switching, basically what happens is, basically you have three threads. Okay, this is a bit deep in operating system, but if you want to learn about threads, then listen to this. So basically, let's say we have 3 to 4 threads. Okay, that, let's say, and threads, if we bundle them, they make a process. Let's just say process is a collection of threads. So if we have 4 threads together, that are that is a process. Okay, now another thing is, a thread, it is dependent on another. Okay, a thread, it is dependent on another thread, unlike processes are independent of another processes. Okay, so thread is basically a task, but all these threads are dependent on each other. Okay, like I told you the example of drawing and painting. So let's say we have a thread that is a task, that is to draw. Another thread, we have a task that is to paint. Okay, and another thread we have, let's say it is to hang the painting on the wall. So we have 3 threads which are dependent on each other, right? But why do we use threads over functions in concurrent? So yeah, so you must be thinking that what a guy, man, he's contradicting himself. Few minutes ago he told that parallel computing is achieved only when the processes or the functions are independent, and now he's telling that threads are independent. See, let me try to explain myself. So what is this context switching is actually, what I'm trying to say is, thread is not actually true parallel computing. It is giving us an illusion of parallel computing. Okay, it's not true. It's like Intel Ultra HD graphics card we have no inbuilt. That is like not a real external graphics card, but it gives us an illusion. It is configured in such a way. So thread is like that. So what happens is, the threads that are dependent on each other, what happens is, one, like the computer, when it starts executing a thread, then it doesn't like completely execute one thread, then goes to the another, then goes to the another. No, it's not like that. Let's say, like, one thread, it has 3 tasks. Okay, one thread, it has 3 tasks. So what it will do, it will complete one task and go to the second thread. Okay, and then it will complete one task of the second thread and go to the third thread. Okay, like again, let's take one process which is, I'll explain to you in simple terms using an example. Let's say what happens is, um, let's say first task is drawing. Okay, then second task is painting, and third task is hanging on the wall. Hanging on the wall would not be appropriate. Let's say third task is finishing touch. Okay. So what will happen is, it will not like do, let's say we are drawing a bird. So it will, what it will do, first thread, it will draw a bird. It will not draw it completely. What it will do, it will just draw the wings and then paint it. Okay. So basically it will just complete some part of a thread and then move to another thread, and then it will just give the finishing touch to that wing. Okay. And then again it will come back to one thread and start with drawing the beak and the face, and then it will paint it, and then it will do finishing touch, and then again it will. So what it does is, it is so fast, it will switch between the threads, so you will get an illusion that it was happening like concurrently. That is a bit deep into threads, what I just told. But if you don't want to understand in depth what is a thread, just think of a thread as a task. Okay, so what happens is, a process is divided into multiple threads. Like in a browser, multiple tabs can be different threads. MS Word uses multiple threads, right? It has like many files, many windows. So that is implemented using threads. One thread to format the text, another thread to process input. So you're getting the idea, right? So just a recap, what happens in a thread is, this is the deep part. What happens in a thread is basically it does this context switching thing. It goes so fast, like in nanoseconds, it will go, and like between the threads, it will go so fast that it will give you an illusion like it is happening simultaneously, right? For humans, seconds is the basic unit, or let's say milliseconds. But when the information processing happens in nanoseconds, we can't process it, right? So for us, it would feel like it is simultaneously happening. But in the processor, this context switching things happen. So so this idea is to achieve parallelism by dividing a process into multiple threads. For example, let's say in a browser, multiple tabs can be different threads, right? Because in different tabs of a browser, we will do different tasks, right? In one tab, we will open YouTube. In another tab, we will open, let's say, we are reading some article. In another tab, we will, let's say, what we are doing. Commons, let's just say we are making some presentation or whatever. Even in MS Word, it uses multiple threads. One task is to format the text. One task is to process the inputs, right? So this was example of thread. Okay, so now moving on. Now I hope you understand what is multi-threading, right? So yeah, sorry, I didn't explain what multi-threading is. So multi-threading is basically we are using multiple threads, okay, in our process. In our process, we are using multiple threads. Okay, if we don't even use a process, let's just say we are using multiple threads which are not related to each other. We are using those multiple threads, and that is happening in a parallel fashion, a concurrent fashion, which is not actually true. That is virtual parallel computing. I've already explained how context switching and all that works. So if we are using multiple threads in our program, like if we are using multiple threads, normally like more than one thread, multiple thread, okay, that is multi-threading. It is as simple as that. You will understand when I show you in code. Okay, don't worry. Now what is the process? Okay, process basically program in execution. Okay, the execution of process must progress in a sequential fashion. A process can also be defined as an entity which represents the basic unit of work to be implemented in the system. So, what is a process? A process is basically a program. You can also think of a program as a process. It has many tasks in it, right? Similarly, a process also has many threads in it. Okay. The execution of a process must progress in a sequential fashion, right? This is because, as I told you, in threads, context switching happens, right? So like the first part of the process is executed, then the second part of the process is executed, then the third part of the process is executed, right? In that sense, what I'm trying to say is it must be progressed in a sequential fashion, nothing else. Now it is the basic unit of work which is implemented in a system. So let's say a very normal system. So a process would be just a basic unit of work, like basic work in a system. In our let's say in our operating system, shutting down of Windows and um, let's say on when we switch on the computer and when we click on an application, those are just processes by the operating system, right? Because they're processing something, just remember like that, and they're doing some task. And technically, if you see, a process is like collection of many threads, okay? So even when a program is loaded into the memory, so when like even C you see, right, the program is loaded in the stack and heap and all that, so then it becomes a process. So what is multiprocessing? In multiprocessing, it's like we are using multiple processes. Okay. Mode of operation in which two or more processors in a computer is simultaneously processing two or more different portions of the same program. Now I just said that they must be executed in a sequential manner, but that is for the like the parts of a process. Okay. That's not for multiple processes. See, one process when it is independent of another process. Okay, one process is, let's say, clicking on Google Chrome. Another process is, let's say, you are increasing the volume. Okay, So those two processes are not at all related to each other, right? So in that case, like obviously your computer just turning up the volume button won't take another core of your CPU, but let's just say a heavy task, like you are playing a game and in the background your Chrome is consuming resources. If you guys don't know, then you must know that our Google Chrome in the background, it takes very huge amount of resources in our system. Okay. Anyways, that is off topic. I was just trying to give you some information. So multiprocessing means when we are doing so much tasks or like multiple processes we are doing. A process is a collection of threads, and in general term it can also be called a collection of tasks. And that is a task in it itself, right? Like doing let's just say it's a big task. So when a very heavy process is used, then we have to use more than one core of CPU, right? One processor of CPU. So we when we are using that simultaneously, we are like we we can also do that to do I'm sorry, one second. Okay. So multiprocessing, what happens, like there are if there is a process, okay, and if it has parts independent of each other, which are not even related to each other, okay. Just in the previous slide, I said that a process must progress in sequential fashion. That is for if the process has dependable, it has threads which are dependent on each other. Then the context switching things happen and all that. But if the process like it has the components which are um, not even dependent on each other, okay, then which is generally the case. Generally, the processes, they are not having much relation to each other, like generally. So in that case, we can use two cores of the CPU or two processor of the CPU to execute those statements simultaneously, right? The same program but different portions. We can do that simultaneously, right? Because they are independent. So multiprocessing is typically carried out by the two or more microprocessor, each of which is the effect of a CPU, right? So our CPU, as I told, it has many processor, not many, just many, like generally four or eight. So we can simultaneously run parts of a program in that. So supercomputers typically combine thousands of such microprocessors to interpret and execute. Right? Obviously, supercomputers are super. They are known for a reason because they have so much abundance of resources. Right? So moving, I hope you get a clear understanding of multiprocessing. So these were the two ways actually, multi-threading and multiprocessing, by which we implement parallel programming in Python, or not just in Python, in other things also. So now you must be wondering, even process is task and thread is task. But earlier also I told that when you like bundle many threads together, you get a process. And there is another major difference between them. Okay. So what is that major difference? It is that threads run within the same process. Remember in the previous slide, see, threads use shared memory, okay, and and um, processors. I'm sorry, processors use distributed memory. Remember, so multi-threading, like when we are doing it, we are using it on shared memory. But when multiprocessing, we are using it on different memory, obviously, because we are using different CPU core only. Okay, so threads within the same process run in a shared memory space. Obviously, because if the threads are in different processes, then it doesn't make sense to give them a common memory, right? They will have different data, different instructions, all that. When they are in the same process, they run in a shared memory space, while processes run in separate memory spaces, as discussed. Now, threads are not independent of one another like processes are, and as a result, threads share with other threads their code section, data section, right? Because one process, it has multiple threads, most likely they are dependent. The threads are dependent on each other, because when we are like a big task, when done in subtasks, we are breaking it into subtasks so that we can do it easily, right? So here also they are dependent and they share their code section, data section, and operating system resources. But like processor thread has its own program counter set and stack space. This is not relevant much. If you study operating systems or embedded system, all that, then you will understand what is this register. So I will not go much into detail, but basically in a nutshell, try to understand that thread, it is like smaller subtask, and when we bundle the threads, we get a process. Okay, and threads have a shared memory space and processes have different memory space. It is so simple. Okay, so now where do you think you'll use? Now we learned both multi-threading and multi-processing, right? What are they? And so when do we use multi-threading? We use multi-threading where the IO intensive processes. Okay, so IO is short form for input output. So when we have processes that are input output intensive, right? Because input output depends on each other, right? What the input will be, that will be the output, right? So in that case, they must have a common shared memory, right? So if they have a common shared memory, they can be improved by multi-threading, because common shared memory parallel computing is implemented by multi-threading. So what are the examples of that? Web scraping. So web scraping, when we do web scraping, the input we get from website and we get some output, right? So that can be improved by multi-threading. Reading and writing into files, this is input output, reading input from the file and writing output into the file, right? Sharing data between the programs, this is also shared memory space, because shared memory and data between the programs. And network communication. Network communication can also be improved by multi-threading, because in your local server or local host, all that, right, you can have like many threads and many connections that can be improved using multi-threading. Now where will we use multiprocessing? So multiprocessing is used where CPU intensive processes are used. Okay, because see, in multiprocessing, as we discussed earlier also, there are like multiple cores of the CPU which are in use, right? So multiple cores will be only when CPU intensive processes are there, right? If you are just writing something in Notepad, that is not like very much consuming of from the CPU, right? So when you are doing some heavy computation, like I told, data mining and all that, then you will use, then you can use multiprocessing. When we are doing text formatting is also heavy, because when you are formatting large chunk of text, then in that case you will need more processor and more processing power and all that stuff, right? Image rescaling, because the whole image has to be rescaled from one coordinate to another coordinate. And data analysis. Data analysis, we have to do so many things on that, right? So that can be improved with multiple processing. See, basically the heavy tasks of the CPU, which are CPU intensive and not so much input output based. Okay, in that case, we will use multiprocessing, and where it is very intensive input output, in that case we will use multi-threading. Okay, so easy. I hope this is the applications are clear. So now we have to also consider another important aspect. You must be thinking that if we just keep on increasing the parallel computing and the cores in the CPU and all that, then at one time we can get like infinite profit and everything in the world can be done simultaneously, right? But actually, it's not the case. See, the gain in speed as you add more parallel processor tends to flatten out at some point. So in starting, it will increase the parallel processing thing, but like as you add more and more and more and more, after a certain threshold, it will get flat. Like you won't get that much gain as you are getting now. Okay, there is going to be one or two processes that take longer than average. Okay, or tasks. Yeah, because there are always going to be there. See, nothing is perfect, so even technology will at some point make some glitch or error. There has to be one or two tasks that take longer than average, and no amount of added processing can speed them up. So, as I told, even if there is a glitch or error or some fault from the system, then no matter, even if you give them 100 processor, it will still make that error, right? And after that error, if it makes, then even if you keep adding the processing power or processor, it will not be of much profit to us, right? So everything has a limit. It can't be like you keep on adding, and keep on expecting the same result every time, right? So this is best described in Amdahl's law. So Amdahl was basically an American entrepreneur or American scientist, and like he was um, working in IBM or something. I don't know much about his background, but that's all I know about Amdahl. So basically, he told a law that like basically if these are processes, okay, blue and red and purple and green, these are just parallel portion processes. So like see, after some time all the graphs are getting flat, right? See, I won't go into detail in this law, what this law is. You can go to Wikipedia and search that. That is a bit complex. It includes computation and all that, okay, latency and all that thing. So I won't go into much depth, and I don't think so personally you need to get into so much details to understand parallel programming in Python. So just I just give you the basic idea of what the guy is trying to say. So he's trying to say that see, even though like you keep on adding the process, see, after some time all the graphs are getting flattened, right? All these graphs are getting flattened. So that is what he's saying, that even if you keep on adding after a certain amount of time, due to some error or whatever XYZ the reason may be, you won't get infinite profit if you keep on adding infinite processor, right? So that was just the basic overview. Now, to conclude, again, if anyone has got this idea that is multi-threading better or if multiprocessing is better, then my friend, I would like to say that see, we can't generalize, okay, saying that multi-threading is better than multiple processing or vice versa, because see, both have their own pros and cons, and we have already discussed them, right? So it depends on actually the use case, whether it is involving a lot of intensive IO tasks or a lot of intensive CPU tasks, or whether it depends if you want to make them access the shared memory or if you want to make them access the distributed memory. So it depends actually. There is no one size fits all thing here. It depends on your use case, what you want to do. Now, one must always consider all these factors before just picking up one of the above two choices, right? Because it depends on the use case. You can't just blindly follow that. I will always use multi-threading no matter what the situation is, or I will always use multiprocessing no matter what the situation is. You have to carefully analyze the situation, and then only you can come to a proper conclusion. Okay. So thank you. That was all the theory. Now we will actually code. See, this is just the basics. I will just teach you how to code the basic, how to implement multiprocessing and multi-threading in Python, and how we can apply these concepts in Python programming language. Okay, so just give me a minute. So in this notebook, we will cover the basic implementation in Python. Okay, so first we will understand how to implement multiprocessing. So for that, first of all, we need to include this import OS and import multiprocessing. By now, I'm assuming that you guys don't have problem understanding what this import things mean. If you don't understand, then revise the lecture, not the lecture, the session we had on modules and packages. You will understand what this import is. Okay. So moving on, like we have to import this multiprocessing module so that we can access that's multiprocessing. It has a lot of functions and all, right, which will help us in parallel programming. And this OS we need because operating, see, the processes, if they have a main process, right? See, these processes are also sub process of one process, that is operating system. So operating system is like over everything, right? So everything comes under it. That is why we need a OS for a few functions. You will understand. So let's just say two functions, okay? This is one function. It is taking a parameter num, okay, and this is another function triple. This is taking parameter num. Num is a number, any integer, and what it will do, it will just print the double of that number, as the name suggests, and this will print triple of that number. Don't break your head on this print os dot get pid. I will tell all that later. Just now ignore this line. Okay. So what it will do, it will just print the double of that number, and what it will do, it will just print triple of this number. Okay. So if we run this, now if we try to run this double function, and if we give 58 as the number here, so it should give us the double of 58, okay, which is 116. So yes, it is printing double is 116, okay. Yeah, it is just printing double is 116 as we expected. Okay. Now I hope you understand what this format thing does. You have already studied it before, so I'm not going to explain that. And if we run this triple 58, we are getting 58 3 the 8 is a 24, and then 2 carry over 5 3 is a 15 and 2 17. Yeah, 174 we are getting over here as triple, and double we are getting here as 116. Okay, so what here we are doing? Okay, so here we are just using the traditional, we are just calling the function one after another, and we are just testing the output. So this is not parallel programming, this is the traditional programming what we do, right? We are just running one function, and when we are running another function, of course it is getting run, but here though we are not running it simultaneously, so wastage of uses. This I just told you to show you like what is normal programming like. Now this multiprocessing module, it has a function called as cpu underscore count. Okay, it gives you the number of cores of cpu in your processor. So if you just run this, it is giving 8. Okay, so that means in my computer, i5 10th gen, it has 8 processors in it. Okay, now this is just a function. We studied what is a process, right? Process is like multiple collection of threads, or you can say a bigger task which has different memory and not a shared memory. So let's take, we have to make convert this function into a process. So how do we do so? And we have to convert this function also into a process. How do we do so? Okay, so there is a function known as multiprocessing dot process. Okay, that is basically, so this is a, remember I taught you in modules and packages, module name dot class name, and then creating an instance over here. So this, I think it is the constructor, and this is values and all that we are passing it in the constructor, because remember we used to create instances like this. So the syntax is multiprocessing dot process target is equal to function name. So this target, you have to write this target is equal to function name. So our function name here is double and triple. Okay. So target name would be function name, which would be double or triple, and args. Okay. What is this args? So the argument you have given in your function. Okay. Or like in your function you can give it multiple arguments, right? So this, you have to set this args as, you have to like give them a tuple. Okay, a tuple of multiple values. Okay, and this comma is very very important. I will show you what happens if you don't give this comma. So we are naming a process P1. We are just creating a process P1. Basically what we are doing is we are converting this double function into a process P1, and this triple function into a process P2. Multiprocessing dot process target is equal to double, which is a function name, r is equal to 58 comma. So what is this 58 comma? So here we ran the function giving the argument 58, right? So here also we are creating a process with the argument parameter value as 58. So if I just run this, it has created two processes. Okay, it is not showing anything. It has created two processes, right? So now if, let's say I am removing the comma, see, it instantly gives an error, because see, int object is not iterable. So here we have to give a tuple. Okay, so for Python to understand it as a tuple, we have to give this comma. Otherwise, it will think it is just an integer. Okay. See, when I run this again after giving comma, the error is vanished. Now, in order to start any process, okay, now start, right? For starting a function, you just call the function. But in order to start a process, you have to explicitly tell it to start. You do that using the p1 dot start function. Okay, so what it does, it basically start the process p1 which we made here, and p2 dot start, it will start the process here. To terminate the process, we will do p1 dot join. Join, I don't know why it is called join, but I think it is basically, see, if you read OS and all that, you will understand what about fork and join, all that. So join is basically, let's say you are dividing it into process. So when it will end, it will join and terminate, right? That is why I think it is join. I don't know the original reason, sorry. Anyways, that is not relevant. You just know that it is join, and I think you'll be great to go. And then I am printing done. Okay. So when I run this, I'm getting this output done. Actually, I must have got output here as 116 and 174 here also. But honestly, I don't know. There is some glitch in Python, and when you start and join this function, sorry, this process, then I don't know. This is some glitch in Python language. Okay, it's not my fault. That if some print is written, it will not print it. Okay, in threading it is not the case. In threading it will print. I will show you. But this is some glitch in Python. Okay. Now you must be wondering that we could have done like this. We could have done p1 dot join, okay, and we could have done p2 dot join, right? Okay, yeah. 1 second. I'll tell you why this error came. Actually, I'm going to show you about this error. I'll tell you why this error came. This is good. Yeah, see, again it is printing done. Okay, it is no problem in doing like this, but you see, first we are making the processor start P1 and then ending it, and then we are starting P2 and then ending it. So what is the use of doing parallel computing if we again want to do like this? This is just another way of doing serial programming, right? First execute P1, then execute P2. So this is nonsense. We have to, if we want to do it more efficiently, we'll do it like this. Yeah. So you are saying that um, I'm getting this error repeatedly. So why is this? I am trying to explain. So see, it is saying that it cannot start a process twice. Okay. So basically, when you start a process and join it, it is starting and terminating. But the thing in Python is you can't start a process twice. Okay. So if you want to again run this, you again have to run this and create the process. And then if you run it, the process, this error will go. So like once the process is created, it can be only started once. If you want to again start the process, then you have to again create the same process over and over again. I hope I am clear. Now this process module, this process module, it also has a function is alive. Okay, so if I just run it, it is showing false. So what does it mean? That is the process still running? So we have done p1 dot join and p2 dot join. That means we have terminated these processes, right? So common sense, if we have terminated this process, how is it alive, right? The process is terminated and it doesn't exist. Something doesn't exist means it's dead. That is not alive. So that is why is alive is returning false. Similarly, it is also returning false. Okay, now another thing which I wanted to show you, now I'll explain this os.getPID. So now you have understood creating process and all that, right? So this OS is like father of all processes, okay? It manages all the sub processes. So this process, every process when it is created, it has a process ID, okay, which is PID, okay. So this process ID, like like each of us, we have one ID, right? When we go to college, we have to show that card, otherwise security doesn't let us go in the college. Similarly, even this every process has a ID, and itself it is running, then how it will know about the ID, right? See, we students, we can't give ID to ourselves. The college, which is the higher authority, gives us ID, right? So OS, which is the higher operating system, or OS, which is the higher authority than the process, will give it and assign it a ID. So if I run this, and then if I run this, see, it is showing 9772. This is the process ID of this, okay. When we are running this, this is its process ID. Because even if we are not creating a process in the operating system, this is whole Python program, it is kind of a process, right? Because I told you, everything what we do in a computer, when it goes to the operating system, it is a process. So this whole notebook, Jupyter notebook, which I'm running, it will come under the same process, okay. Like for the operating system, it will come under the same process. That is why if I run this, see, I will get both the process ID as same. Ideally both are different functions, so I should get different process ID, right? But for the operating system, both of these processes are same, as this whole Google Chrome and whole this Jupyter notebook is under one process. Now I now again, if we are creating these two processes, then again we are See, again, it is starting and executing. I so badly want to show you that here both it would print both processes having different process ID, because we are creating two sub processes in this program, right? In this Jupyter notebook, we are creating two sub processes, P1 and P2. But I don't know, there's some glitch in Python, and that is why I'm not able to show you how this is process ID. Otherwise, I would have shown you. But just write it down somewhere that both of these processes will have different process ID. Okay. Okay. So I hope you understood implementation in parallel processing using multiprocessing. Now I will teach you about multi-threading. Okay. So just like multiprocessing, we have this import threading. We don't have this multi-threading. I have a theory about that. Like, don't call me a conspiracy theorist or anything. I just have this theory because I taught you about context switching, right? Like how the threading thing gives us an illusion of multi-threading, that it is just going from one thread to another thread and then like that. So I think it is giving us a virtual illusion. That is why even the Python guys or the guys who created this threading, they didn't let us write it as multi-threading. It is just threading because it is giving us an illusion of context switching. And here, for real multiple processes and CPU cores, they have that execution thing. But here it is illusion, right? So we are again considering the same function double, it will print double, and triple, it will print triple. This threading current side and os dot get PID, so I have made you understand. This thing I will make you understand a bit later, so just ignore it. And this triple, it will print triple. So if I just run it, let's say 60, so it is showing 62 is a 120, and here triple 63 is a 180, it is printing. Okay. So again, similarly like process, we have the syntax for thread. So here it is the thread name, and instead of multiprocessing, it is threading module name dot like class name and then the instance, and the syntax is pretty much same. Target, we are giving the function name, and argument, we are again passing a tuple over here. Like I have one this thing. Otherwise, I could have given like another. Okay, I will just show you 1 second. Let's just say I have a function. Okay, def multiply. Um, it is taking num1 and then num2. Okay, and it is printing num1 into num2. Okay, so if I run this mul using 30, 40, I will get 1200. 30, 40 is a 1200. And if I want to create a thread for this, how I will do is I will do P3, let's say, is equal to threading dot thread target is equal to our function name, which is mul, and args over here, since it is two values, I would say 30, 40, okay. So and we have created two threads over here, T1 and T2, okay, for the double and triple function. Now again, for normally like multi processing, we did like P1 dot start, P2 dot start, P1 dot join, and P2 dot join. Even for threads, it is T1, same function, it is the same. So when we run this, oh sorry, I didn't run this cell. Yeah, so when we run this, we are getting double as 120, triple as 180. See, when we ran the process thing, we just got done. Okay, but here, okay, 1 second, I'll just print done. So I have to keep running this cell. I'll tell you again why. So here it is printing done, and here it is printing the function also. So this glitch in Python, it is only there for the process. For thread, it is not there. Okay. So here, if we run just the T3 one, it is giving us 1200. It is printing, right? So this, it is almost similar. And again, see, if I run it, I am getting error. Just I got like few minutes ago. Just like processes, even threads can only be started once. So if you want to run this again, you will get this error. And again, you have to create these threads, and then again you have to run them. So it will run. Okay. So now again, I will show you this. So what is this? Is basically a threading module. One second. Yeah. Threading dot current thread dot name. So this current thread will, it is a function. Okay. It gives us the name of the, it gives us the current thread. Okay. It's just like PID, but here instead of the process we are getting a thread ID. So this gives us a thread, which this function, it will return us current thread, but it will have many attributes. So we are just interested in the name attribute. That is why we are calling the dot name. So module name dot function call returns something, so it's attribute. And here also we are doing this. So if we run this and if we print it, we are getting main thread 9272. Okay. And here also we are getting main thread 9272, because as I told, right, operating system. Okay, sorry. This 9272 is the process ID, and this name attribute what we are getting for the current thread, it is the main thread, because we haven't created any sub threads or any other. See, in a process, if we create main thread and other thread, then the point of other thread comes. But these two are independent of each other, right? So that is why both of them are the main threads. Okay. And now if we run this, okay, yeah. And now if we run this, see, we are getting over here as thread 14 and thread 15, and we are getting the values over here. And why are we getting 14 and 15? This I don't know. I don't know that much of operating system, but it has something related to operating systems. So we have created two threads over here, right? So obviously their name must be different, right? Thread 14 and thread 15. That is why it is different, and they both belong to the same processes. Although they are independent of each other, but they both belong to the same process, right? I told you, like, one process can have multiple threads, not have, it generally has. So that is why both of their process ID is the same. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed the session. That was it. This is just the really basic implementation of parallel programming in Python. You can keep on diving deep. There is no end to all this. But I just gave you a brief overview of like how it tastes like. The ocean is very vast. You can deep dive into a lot. Okay. So I just told you the basics. There are like many advanced topics like synchronous thread calls, and then you create a memory pool, and then how do you communicate between the process and thread. That would be like very complex for you guys for now. So I suggest you study operating systems. Then you would like have a very clear concept on threads and processes and all that. So when you study operating systems, then you will have a lot much easier uh, concepts. Okay. So anyways, guys, I'll just wrap up, and I hope you enjoyed the session, and um, I hope you do your assignments well, and good luck, and thank you so much.